On August 13, 2003, on the Ghost Festival in Xinhua Town, Tainan County, Taiwan Province, 35-year-old Chen Meili and her husband Kang Yubin had 2 daughters and 1 son. They lived in a 4-story self-built house and once ran an internet cafe at number 294 Xinyi Road. Kang Yubin went to Shanghai to open an internet cafe, and Chen Meili often went to Shanghai with her 6-year-old son Kang Jakin. The 2 daughters are taken care of by Kang Yubin's parents. The internet cafe at home is closed, but the computer is still there. Chen Meili and Kang Jakin returned to Tainan from Shanghai at the end of July, but because Kang Chaohui and her sister were attending summer classes, they had been staying at their grandparents' house. Chen Meili promised to make breakfast for her grandparents and grandchildren at 7 a.m. every morning. However, at 9:30 a.m. one day, Kang Chaohui discovered that the wooden door of her home was locked. No one answered the phone, and there were no shoes for mother and son on the shoe cabinet. Kang Chaohui and her grandmother found a locksmith and opened the door at around 10 a.m. They found signs of cleaning in the living room, the bedding in the master bedroom was messy, and the bathroom door was closed. Behind the closed bathroom door, they found Chen Meili's body soaked in a bathtub filled with water. She was wearing short-sleeved, light-colored pajamas tied behind her back, stockings stuffed in her mouth, and her hands tied behind her back with autumn clothes. Kang Jakin was found hanging in the closet, with a white bath towel wrapped around his neck and his hands tied behind his back. The bath towel strangled his neck, creating a horrifying scene. The grandfather and grandson panicked and called the police. The police arrived, but the evidence at the scene had been moved many times and the damage was serious. The task force found that 3 doors had not been breached and speculated that the murderer might have used keys or special techniques to gain entry. Chen Meili's shoes were placed indoors to create the illusion of going out. After forensic investigation, Chen Meili was first suffocated by covering her mouth and nose, and then strangled to death, and her body was put into the water. Kang Jakin was strangled and suffocated by an irregular object. The police set up the Euro Unther 3 task force to investigate. Through detailed on-site investigation and scientific identification, the task force made the following key findings. There were 2 anti-theft iron doors and a wooden gate at the crime scene, both of which were not damaged. The murderer may have used a key or special technology to gain entry, and the possibility that Chen Meili introduced the murderer into the home cannot be ruled out. Kang's door uses a horn lock. The murderer may have pressed the anti-lock button inside so that the outside key cannot open it. The murderer placed the shoes of Chen Meili and her son indoors in order to delay the discovery of the bodies. The 2 deceased died between 2:30 and 3:30 in the morning on August 13th. Chen Meili was first covered with her mouth and nose to cause suffocation, and then strangled to death, and her body was put into the water. Kang Jakin was strangled and suffocated by an irregular object. No property was missing from the home, but the gold jewelry from Chen Meili's hand was not taken away. However, a sum of nearly 10,000 yuan in cash and a bunch of keys were missing. The murderer cleaned up the scene and left no other footprints or fingerprints, probably mixed in with the rescuers. A screwdriver and a fruit knife were found at the scene, with skin debris on the fruit knife. Tenants on the 3rd floor said the same fruit knife was missing from their home. A stain containing semen was found on the quilt of the master bedroom at the murder scene, indicating that sexual assault or necrophilia may have occurred. The bloodstains on the sanitary napkin came from Chen Meili. Chen Meili's mobile phone was found on the bathroom table. There were no fingerprints, and it was suspected that it had been placed by the murderer. However, the key physical evidence found, such as bath towels, hand-tied clothing, semen stains, and DNA on fruit knives, are all mixed. These current evidences are difficult to accurately identify the murderer. During the investigation, the task force faced many doubts and contradictions. For example, questions such as the origin of the fruit knife and screwdriver found, the location where the cell phone was found, and the mixed DNA on the evidence have raised questions. The murderer's motive has also become complicated. It seems that it is not for property or sexual assault, but may be seeking revenge. Despite an investigation into the couple's network, initial suspects were ruled out. During further investigation, attention was paid to Chen Meili's best friend, who had a quarrel with Chen Meili. However, The investigation found no abnormal behavior on her part, and the DNA comparison could only be performed on 12 sets of chromosomes, which did not meet the legal standard of 16 sets. This caused the task force to cast doubt on the reliability of this clue and consider whether someone deliberately left traces to mislead the police. The investigation ran into trouble as it struggled to determine the identity and motives of the real killer. During the investigation, the task force paid attention to a 26-year-old man, Liu Huakun, who was an employee of Chen Meili's internet cafe and knew the situation of the Kang family very well. However, Liu Huakun mysteriously disappeared after being summoned by the task force for a saliva test. Although he was caught on camera shoplifting in early September, his disappearance may have been to avoid charges of shoplifting. The Kang family had a good impression of Liu Huakun. They even kept him for a short time when the internet cafe was closed and paid him monthly salary. They also often bought him late-night snacks, cigarettes, and water. Kang Jekin also called him Uncle Liu. This made the task force less suspicious of his involvement. However, Kang's family was dissatisfied with the police's lack of progress, and public opinion also questioned the police, exacerbating the task force's anxiety. During the investigation, the task force faced a dilemma. No progress was made in arranging acquaintances, and the two suspicious persons seemed to have no motive. The Kang family was disappointed with the police's ineffectiveness, and the pressure from public opinion made the task force anxious. Faced with an unsolvable mystery, the task force thought about adjusting its investigation ideas. Just at the moment of anxiety, a new reasoning suddenly emerged, bringing a glimmer of hope to the case. At the end of September 2003, the task force returned to the crime scene. Wu Jinlong noticed a stain on the inside of the wardrobe bar where Kang Jekin was suspended, which seemed to be stained with human sweat. Although this stain cannot directly identify the murderer, Wu Jinlong speculated that the murderer was nearly 185 centimeters tall and weighed about 200 kilograms. The task force began to screen people acquaintances of Chen Meili and her husband, who were about 185 centimeters tall and weighed 200 pounds, and found that only Liu Huakun met the conditions. Liu Huakun was once an employee of Chen Meili and knew the situation of the Kang family, and he disappeared in the saliva test for nearly a month. The task force issued a joint investigation notice and made every effort to search for Liu Huakun. On October 5th, he was arrested in Okayama town. During the interrogation, Liu Huakun denied any involvement in the murders of Chen Meili's mother and son, claiming that he was grateful to Chen Meili and would not retaliate against his employer. He explained that he disappeared to avoid being caught for shoplifting in Yongkang supermarket. On October 6th, he actively cooperated with fingerprint and saliva testing. However, due to technical limitations at the time, only 12 sets of chromosomes could be compared. The results were consistent with Liu Huakun, but they could not be used as evidence in court. The Kang family was disappointed, while Liu Huakun behaved triumphantly in the detention center. Suddenly, good news came from the Provincial Criminal Police Department, which introduced the most advanced technology to conduct more precise analysis of mixed DNA and compare 16 sets of chromosomes. On November 1st, after the task force learned of the news, they immediately sent the physical evidence to the criminal police station for analysis. On the evening of November 20th, the analysis results came out, confirming that the DNA of Liu Huakun's saliva sample was consistent with the DNA on the fruit knife, bath towel, and other physical evidence. This provided decisive evidence for Liu Huakun to become the main suspect. According to Liu Huakun's confession, he was a former employee of Kangjia Internet Cafe and was valued by Chen Meili and his wife for his hard work. However, as the internet cafe closed, Liu Huakun fell into trouble after losing his job and was even detained for theft. After Kang Yubin went to Shanghai to open an internet cafe, Liu Huakun was unemployed and once again fell into financial constraints. He hopes to continue to get help from Chen Meili, especially to continue playing game accounts on behalf of her in order to earn some meager income. Meili Chen agreed to pay him a monthly salary of NT $3,000 and even provided bonuses and free cigarettes. However, Liu Huakun's satisfaction gradually turned into dissatisfaction, especially for an incident in which he did not receive a bonus. On the evening of August 12, 2003, Liu Huakun learned that Chen Meili had cash and believed that he should receive a bonus, but was not satisfied. Therefore, he decided to enter Chen Meili's home at night in an attempt to get back the compensation he thought he deserved. This behavior became Liu Huakun's motive for robbing the Kang family. On the night of the crime, Liu Huakun used a flat-blade screwdriver to pry open the Kang family's stairwell and the security door on the 4th floor, and then entered the Kang family's self-built house on the 4th floor. Since the keyhole of Kang's last wooden door was too narrow to use a screwdriver, he went to Lin Dengkai's house on the 3rd floor and used a screwdriver to pry open the door again. At Lin Dengkai's house, he found a fruit knife with a yellow handle and no scabbard, and returned to the 4th floor. Liu Huakun used a fruit knife to open the wooden door of Kang's house and then entered the house. He first took off his shoes, wearing only socks, placed the screwdriver on the shoe cabinet by the door, and then began to search for valuable items in the room. After failing to find the target, he walked into the bathroom to use the toilet, but in the process he was accidentally stabbed in the thigh by a fruit knife. He placed the fruit knife on the bathroom tank. About 5 minutes later, when Liu Huakun walked out of the bathroom, he found that the door of the Kang family's mother and son's room was ajar. He noticed that Chen Meili might have noticed the movement and was about to come out to check. To avoid discovery, he hid in the doorway and waited. When Chen Meili walked out of the room, he immediately strangled her neck with his right hand, covered her mouth and nose with his left hand, and subdued her to the ground. Then he quickly tied Chen Meili's hands with another piece of clothing. Liu Huakun then entered the room and took out 7,000 yuan in cash and a bunch of 4 keys from the dresser drawer. Before leaving the room, Kang Zheqin suddenly woke up and called him Uncle Lu. The frightened Liu Huakun quickly adopted the same method, tied up Kang Zheqin, and blocked his eyes and mouth with clothes. In this way, Liu Huakun successfully controlled the Kang family mother and son. While staying at the Kang family, Liu Huakun discovered that Chen Meili had broken free from her bonds and tried to call for help. In order to prevent being discovered, Liu Huakun tied her back again and took extreme measures to cover Chen Meili's mouth and nose with his hands, causing her to suffocate to death. Later, to ensure that she was dead, Liu put her in the bathtub and filled it with water. After satisfying his animal desires, Liu Huakun was still worried that Chen Meili was not completely dead, so he carried her back to the bedroom and then tied Kang Zheqin behind her back to the closet rail with a yellow long-sleeved top and a long white bath towel, and committed the hanging. In order to ensure that the binding was secure, Liu Huakun even accidentally got a sweat stain while checking the inside of the crossbar. After confirming Kang Zheqin's death, Liu Huakun began to clean up the scene, including wiping the semen, making the bed, turning off the air conditioner and windows, and cleaning up fingerprints. He also brought the mother and son's shoes into the house and locked the door, creating the illusion that the two were out and delaying the discovery of the bodies. Liu Huakun also tried to let the bodies soak in the water for a few more days to reduce the chance of forensic doctors discovering traces. However, in the process of manipulating the crime scene, Liu Huakun accidentally left behind a fruit knife and screwdriver and forgot a trace of semen on a quilt that fell on the ground. Eventually, these omissions became leads in the police investigation. On the evening of November 21, 2003, the police escorted Liu Huakun back to the scene to identify him. The angry neighbors tried to break through the cordon and beat Liu Huakun. The Kang family could not suppress their inner anger and clashed with the police. November 22, 2003, that is, 20 years ago today, Tainan police officially announced that they had solved the case and filed an appeal against Liu Huakun, accusing him of nearly 10 crimes including intentional homicide, insulting corpses, forced sexual intercourse, killing young children, and theft.